Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Your Big Music Moment. Every day, every weekday at 5 p.m. Pacific. I'd like to give a quick shout out to our presenting sponsor, Crocs. Thanks so much for supporting us and supporting music and musicians. Also, like to talk a little bit about Musicians on Call, our associated charity. They bring the healing power of music to those in need. Speaking of music and its healing power, we're here with Mason Summit. Mason, how you doing, man?
Wow, here I am. I'm good.
Yes.
Fig-
Haha.
Figured
After
it
the,
out.
the technical wizards had their way, we conquered. We'd love to just hear. Why don't we start out with some music, if you're cool with that?
All right. This is a song called "Doomed from the Start." Seems a little prescient for this time. There's a music video for this on YouTube as well. This is a single I released in February. Neither your fault nor mine. We reached the end of the line, the inevitable decline. But now I see you complicate. Point fingers, try to implicate me in sealing your fate. Cause the truth is always harder on the heart. The truth is we were doomed from the start. We were doomed from the start. We were born to be apart. We were doomed from the start. So it's no use to pretend that this didn't have to end. And please don't try to be my friend. Because there's two lives here at stake. Don't repeat the same mistakes. Pull the emergency brake. Cause the truth is always harder on the heart. The truth is we were doomed from the start. We were doomed from the start. We were born to be apart. We were doomed from the start. Well, the truth is always harder on the heart. The truth is, oh, the truth is, we were doomed from the start. We were born to be apart. We were doomed from the start.
Beautiful. That's
Thank you.
awesome. That's awesome. Tell me, before I would like to know. We always want to know where you're from creatively and where your journey is here. But more, tell us about that song first. That's really beautiful.
Thank you. Well, it's kind of, I guess I'm not someone who believes in fate so much, but I've always been fascinated by the concept of it and kind of fatalism. I'm a big fan of like film noir, where it just seems like there's one bad thing after another, and it's
Right.
this endless uh, kind of spiral. I kind of
Mm.
love that concept of being just things being out of your control, you know.
Right.
But the song is kind of about specifically like high school relationships, mine really, and just how it feels like sometimes because of the circumstances surrounding something like a relationship, no matter what you do or how much you care about the person, there's just uh, some factors that prevent it from working out that are
Right.
out of your control, you know.
Right. And in a
And with
different time or universe, it might
yeah,
be the
exactly.
perfect thing.
And for the music video, we kind of played with the final girl kind of horror movie trope. I wanted it to be not sound like a breakup song. I used the concept of the song to be kind of like a slasher 80s horror movie pastiche, and I think it worked out really well. My friend directed that.
Uh, Where can everyone see that? Is
It's
that
on
just go?
YouTube, just Mason Summit, Doomed from the Start, and that's a single that came out on February 14th for Valentine's Day.
The
And
slasher romance Valentine's Day song.
yeah, and
Awesome.
the album that it's going to be on is coming out in like next week, June 5th. Yeah,
Excellent. Well, we're going to keep our eyes out for that. So so you're in Los Angeles now. Where did you grow up, and why are we sitting here with you with your guitars behind you? You know, you making this great music. What was that? How's that path
I grew up
wind?
about 15 miles from here in Santa Monica. I'm in Chinatown now, and the reason I'm here specifically is actually my girlfriend interned at Big, uh, like a
Ah,
couple years ago,
ah,
and that's how I heard of you guys and what you do. But
good.
I come from a really artistic family. My brother is a poet and musician. My mom is a poet who produces literary events, and my dad was an actor and a musician. And so
Wow.
I grew up also like my dad was a baby boomer, and so I kind of got exposed to a lot of different generations of music. Like my mom was really into the 70s singer songwriter kind of stuff, like
All
Jackson
right.
Browne and Blood on the Tracks, that kind of thing. And my dad would show me stuff like the Monterey Pop Festival and the Dick Cavett Show, like Janis Joplin, and like a lot of
All right.
psychedelic rock and even back like to the 50s. And my parents were always just I'm really lucky to come from such an artistic and supportive family who supported me playing live from an early age and would kind of help me make that happen. Like they were always looking out for me and
That's great.
like trying to find opportunities for me. And I was lucky enough to go to the USC Thornton School of Music, just a few miles away, which I just graduated from. Uh,
Congratulations.
so I think having parents, thank you, having parents that kind of understand being an artist is just a
All
really
right.
special thing.
It's a
I
whole
think.
different game. You know, it's you're alive at different times of days. We're talking about earlier. Just being an artist is a different type of existence
Yeah,
than
and just
others.
growing
And
up with instruments in the house and being familiar with the artistic process here, like both my parents were creating things. You know, I would see my dad's songwriting process and my mom's poetry
oh wow,
process, and it's like I heard a quote from Sly Stone where he was talking about his upbringing, and he said like growing up everyone in his family played piano, and he didn't realize until he went into the real world that not everyone grew up that way. He thought that
right?
music was something everyone did in their
Yeah,
house, and
yeah.
he didn't know anything else. And I thought that was so cool. It's definitely like a nature versus nurture kind of thing. Like it just never seemed like there was any other path, I guess.
That's great. That's something that's lost. You know, the family that in Appalachia or wherever, the families used to gather around after dinner. You played music. You were
Right.
creative. There were because there was no TV and there was one show on radio or whatever. That might be. something we're approaching differently as a culture right now. Um,
Definitely.
but but I want to come back. Poetry is it's the economy of poetry really is impactful as the economy of music is. But let's hear some more. Let's hear some more tunes before we talk about
Yeah.
that.
So I'll do a couple songs. This is my most recent single, and it's the title track from my upcoming album. This one's called Negative Space. Friend, I've seen that look before. It just gets worse the more you try to ignore. But fear not, I've found a cure. Millions swear by it, rest assured. 'Cause I'm what's left when the rest has been erased. Standing in the negative space. Close your eyes, let the darkness take its place, and join us in the negative space. You see this room, it has no doors. Here you'll find no bottom floor. We've got everything you need. It gets much easier now you're free. 'Cause I'm what's left when the rest has been erased. Standing in the negative space. Come on down, let the darkness take its place, and join me in the negative space. So here's what's left. Now your world's been laid to waste. There's nothing but the negative space. Close the door, let the darkness take its place, and join us in the negative space. Now join me in the negative space. That one's called Negative Space, as you might have gathered. And I'm going to play the title track from my last album, which came out a couple years ago. This one's called Summer Cold. I've got this summer cold that doesn't seem to pass, and I hope it doesn't last too much longer. I've got this summer cold, and I hope it doesn't spread, so I'll stay here in bed till I'm stronger. I caught it from you. You don't cover your mouth when the sick starts to spew and the blue starts a brewing. I caught it from you. I thought I was fine, coughing up blood all of a sudden. got this summer cold, the dawn is bound to break. I lie here awake through the night. I've got this summer cold, the sun it starts to rise. Me, I shield my eyes from the light. If you only knew all the damage you've wrought, the afflictions you brought on this path you have chosen. I skated on ice and I fell right through the cold depths of you. Now here I am frozen. I've got this summer cold. Oh, I've got this summer cold. I've got this summer cold.
Wow, those are two killer songs, man.
Thank you.
Very cool. I'd like the obviously, I mean, the summer cold and some of the imagery. I realize it's a metaphor, but it's obviously a little bit of a prescient metaphor at this juncture.
Yeah, that's
You
weird.
know,
It's kind of been
it,
happening. I've noticed that with
yeah,
some of my recent songs. I mean, I tend to uh, I tend to do some of the kind of psychosomatic stuff. Like a lot of the ways my kind of mental stuff happens is physically, like it
right.
manifests physically, and so it's a metaphor that I do gravitate towards.
And that's interesting. That's and you talk about your mom being a poet, and obviously your lyrics are very poetic. But poetry is such a refined art, and it's lyrics are poetry, but with the added burden of fitting into a song structure that's changing. I know poetry fits into its various structures, but sometimes you don't have that much flexibility in a song.
Mhm.
You know, there
That's
needs to
true.
be you got to have a vowel here, or if you want to hold the note, or whatever it is. If you want to, but I think it's really interesting that that's part of your influence. And the negative space. That's such a also powerful metaphor, and the opposite of form in
Thank
art.
you.
So how is that? Have you ever co-written something with your mom?
Not with my mom, I haven't. But it was definitely an influence, especially because I was exposed to a lot of different forms of poetry. Like my mom has a poetry scene that's kind of West Coast, like a lot of West Side, kind of Venice, Bohemian poets. Like I grew up around some of the real great kind of beatnik
Right,
poets. There's a guy named Michael C. Ford, who's a family friend. Stevie Kalinich, who wrote lyrics for the Beach Boys, is a family friend. And I would hear people read. I think something that's really important to me is hearing poetry read is a much different experience than reading
right,
it on the page.
right,
I think
right.
that had an impact on me. And then my brother has like a PhD in creative writing and is very much kind of a formalist and an academic style poet, which has a lot more to do with those traditional forms and structures.
Right.
And yeah, it's just a big melting pot. And of course, like you said, lyrics as poetry
Yeah.
as
And that's
well.
where,
It's I've never really tried writing poetry too much, but I have co-written lyrics. I like to write the music and lyrics at the same time so it all kind of
okay,
fits together.
right.
It's unfortunate when you write a line that doesn't fit like
Yeah.
syllable wise with the music that you just wrote.
Yeah. And that writing the music and the lyrics together that's a uniquely solo experience, I think.
Right, exactly.
That's you're doing battle with the void by yourself on
Right.
that one.
Well put.
That's it's really great. I think that understanding how much thought goes into all of this, not only is it in each particular song, but the approach behind it. and where it all comes from, and all of that exposure to other people's art, and your own life.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I'm always eager to talk about the people who have helped shape me, and hope that I can one day be that for someone else. Lyrics for me is always about finding a balance between really personal and it's a balancing act between like getting the feeling across in an artful way,
right.
in the best, most articulate way, the balance between imagery and narrative. There's so much to
Yeah.
think about.
There was
Yeah.
in talking about your own personal experience, there was listening to an interview with Janelle Monáe, and she was talking about in her first record, she had a brilliant artist, and very forward thinking, but she had some lyrics, and she was young, a bit younger at the time. I mean, she's young now, from my perspective, but she had written something that about her mother and about some of that youthful angst came out in this line, and she was kind of really a little bit thinking that wasn't she had matured beyond that emotion, and was a little bit kind of upset that it was in the song still, and so she shared that. And is there anything like that from your now you mentioned you have a record and now you're doing
Yeah.
another one, and are there some you're like, oh, I would rephrase that?
Well, I think what's important is that not all my songs are really about my life,
Okay.
and
Right.
some of the more personal ones, no one knows what they have to do with me. Like Summer
Right.
Cold to me is a really personal song. Uh and it's about I a lot of songs I don't realize what they're about until I'm about halfway through writing them. And I
Yeah.
started Summer Cold as kind of like a metaphor for feeling depression in a happy setting, like you can be among friends or out in the sunshine at the beach, but
Right.
internally what's going on is so different, and it's kind of like a lingering sickness. And then about halfway through, like when I was writing the second chorus or bridge or whatever you'd call it, I realized, oh, this is about me dealing with grief and trauma, and I didn't even
Right.
really know that,
Right.
um
That
and
that's
the
I
song
think that's yeah,
yeah
that's a great perspective. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
the
That's a
song I'm
great
going to close
perspective.
with is about seasonal depression and about grief.
Yeah.
I think definitely a lot of artists maybe sometimes have a hurdle of feeling like, oh, I can't expose this part of myself in a song. But it's kind of like,
Right.
if not in your art, then where are you going to do it?
Yeah.
That's the place to do it. I never try to be a super confessional songwriter per se, but you can't close off any part of yourself in
Right.
your art. People I feel like can tell when you're not being vulnerable.
Yes, and that's the one thing that musicians, that's why I think that fundamentally we as fans have so much respect for musicians, because they are, operating without a net emotionally. You're showing, either if it's not about yourself, it's still your true opinion about something without any varnish and anything to fall back on.
Yeah. I
So,
understand the thing, like sometimes you write something and you're like, wow, do I want to put that out, or is that just
right.
me? um but probably if it makes that kind of response in you, it'll
Yeah.
get a visceral response in somebody else.
I think that that's yeah, and that's exactly the right way to look at it, and how that that you're talking fundamentally as an artist because you want to influence others, and it doesn't matter for yourself what that means. It matters what it means to them. And I think that's amazing. It's great. We got some deep and good perspective.
Yeah.
Awesome. Do you want to close this out and play one more
Yeah,
track?
let's do it.
All right. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for
And
having me.
everyone, please visit all the socials. Go to our social, go to Mason Summit, and donate, listen, look, watch, see, and appreciate.
So I'll give an intro for this one, because we were talking about kind of the exposing yourself in art and being vulnerable, and things coming through. So this is a song that I wrote in response to a prompt in my songwriting class at USC, and it's one of the best classes I've ever taken. And the prompt was to write a song to your eighth grade self. and obviously eighth grade, a lot of people came back with some really vulnerable personal songs. Uh, for me, eighth grade, I was dealing with the trauma of my dad dying in January 2008. And on top of that, I've always had, I think, some form of seasonal affective disorder. So this is a song that really goes out to anyone who's going through pandemic related depression or whatever the cause may be. It's just a song about wanting to make someone feel better. And this song is out right now. It's called Round January. I hope one day I can tell you this won't last and be right. 'Cause I know how you get when sun sets early. But there's a better way, there must be, surely. And maybe you make it out alive. Maybe, just maybe, you'll survive. I hope one day you might treat yourself the way you treat most everyone else. 'Cause I know how you get round January. Crumbling under weight you just can't carry. But maybe you'll make it out alive. Maybe, just maybe, you'll survive. Maybe you'll make it out alive. Maybe, just maybe, you'll survive. I hope one day I can tell you this won't last and be right by your side.
Wow, Mason, that's very special. Thanks for
Thank
sharing.
you so much.
This is
Thanks
kind of
for having
making
me, Chris.
making my afternoon. This is
My
beautiful
pleasure.
and beautiful
Likewise.
music. So we would love to see you again here soon, and we'll be in touch. And thank you for making beautiful music, man.
Thank you
Talk
so
soon.
much. All right.
Mason Summit, everybody. Wow, what an amazing artist, a poet, and a bard all wrapped into one. I'd like to talk a little bit about Crocs, again, helping us and helping emerging artists. We are Big Music and we are a home for artists. And we offer this stage to artists so they're able to connect with sponsors and connect with members of their artistic community, and of course, connect with more fans. And those fans are you. So please go and support Crocs and also support artists like Mason and specifically Mason. So thank you very much. And we will see you here tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Looking forward to it. See you then.